Hey there, Dead Men Inc. production fans out there. If you enjoy this show or any of the other shows that we provide here on Dead Men Inc. Productions, then please consider donating to us on Patreon. For even a small donation, you'll be able to help contribute to us being able to create more content and better content and help this small, meager studio of creatives bloom into, a slightly less poor group of creatives. Thanks. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bomvoyage Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Johnson. This is Travis, once again, and this week we're reviewing the live-action interpretation of The Jungle Book. Well, not the live-action interpretation. There's actually been, a lot of these, but I never watched any of those. Did you?
Oh, I watched the other one.
The one where Mowgli's older?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That is not what we're talking about.
No, it's not. I'm just making sure I made reference to it. So yes, we're a little late on this one, but I was really excited about finally getting a chance to see this one and talk about it, which is kind of why we brought, Bomvoyage out of, wherever it was in order to do this. And I'm really excited to talk about it. So before we get started, we should establish at least a baseline where we're at coming into the Jungle Book. I have not seen at least the original story in its entirety probably since childhood, but, it's still most of it pretty fresh in my head. I've seen bits and pieces or listened to songs a lot since then. But Travis, the Jungle Book to you happen to really like the original, correct?
Yes, it's not my favorite, but it's the one that it's okay. I really like the Jungle Book, but I admit it's not the best movie. It's not like Disney's deepest or something, but it's the one that I watched in childhood a lot and I have a really big connection with. And I really, really like the Disney's original Jungle Book. Can't I... the names. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just you don't want to have to say Jungle Book 2016 rather than
Yeah.
No, this one is the Jungle Book. I know what you mean. Anyway, so we've been hearing for a while that this was something they were going to make. And I'm not usually one that's, at least with these Disney live-action remakes, I've known they've been happening for a while, but this is, I think, the first one where I was actually perplexed at the idea enough to, really be paying attention to, the casting announcements or waiting for the trailers to come out or that kind of thing. Because even just in its construction, there was a lot of speculation on how the hell they're even going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one thing to, for instance, just take the characters of Sleeping Beauty and put, live-action people in really good-looking dresses and build a castle and do that thing. Or Cinderella, yeah, it's period piece and magical special effects elements on top of it. This movie is, a 7 to 10-year-old boy who has to be played by an actual young actress, not an older person voice acting, in a jungle by themselves, interacting with a giant slew of talking animals, and also be, funny and entertaining and horrifying and, all this stuff. Just even the question... It wasn't even a question of why are they doing a Jungle Book movie. It was a question of how are they going to do a Jungle Book movie. To the point where, it was an example of a movie I literally didn't know what to think about it until the moment it actually came out. To the bitter end, I was just I don't know what I'm going to think about this movie. So... bare basics. What are your bare necessities? What are your... I know.
Okay.
What are your blanket thoughts on the movie?
Okay.
Then we'll dive deeper.
1 second. I gotta say, going into this movie, I specifically avoided... Once I learned that this is a thing that is happening, I tried to stay away from as much as I could.
Right.
Because I was worried things were going to go wrong. So I tried to go in... I've been mostly negative on these live action ones.
Yeah.
Not completely, but mostly, so I was really worried.
Mm-hmm.
So I come in, and the first trailer hit, the teaser trailer, I was like, okay, I'm on board now.
Right.
I saw what I wanted to see, and so I kind of forget about it for a while. Not really, but
right.
enough. I just blindside myself to it. Go in, sit down. Blanket statement, it's everything I wanted.
Okay.
It really was really good. I was really excited for this. This is everything I wanted in this movie.
Right.
Like, I knew I was gonna get sucked in. If it let me, I was totally gonna get sucked in. And as soon as the movie started, I started to get sucked in. I didn't think how much I really did.
Right.
This is The Jungle Book, just better.
Yeah,
all the Jungle Book is still there.
As a revisitation of the original, it is phenomenal on that merit.
Like, okay, like the other big one, like, yeah, okay, the other live action ones, most of them have been like reinterpretations, except the other one is like Cinderella, but that was just kind of a storytelling added on.
Yes.
This was a little more than that.
Right.
They fleshed out a little bit. They changed stuff. They did new stuff. They did good. But it was really just more fleshed out. It felt really good. And it just looked really, really good. That was part of it. Just, yeah.
So, me overall, and I'll get into more of the, a lot more when we dive deeper, but I will say, this is an example of a movie where it's the perfect example of what I'm telling people why knowing how movies are made, at least in my opinion, helps you make the experience better than take away for me. Because I knew I was going to get sucked in. For the most part, I knew I was going to get sucked into, the Disney whimsy, and I liked a lot of those kind of things. So story-wise, like getting the Jungle Book thing, I was a lot more confident on that level. On a technical level, that was where I was looking to be a lot more skeptical, because I knew that was like the uphill battle that this movie had, at least for me, because, it's, like, I was really curious. I knew it was probably going to be good, but I was curious how they were going to pull it off, or like what it would actually end up looking like in the end.
I wasn't worried about that at all, because you've seen Disney do really good stuff like this, and recently just look at like Rocket Raccoon and stuff like that, and how realistic it looked.
Yeah, but there's still, like, for me personally, I don't know. For me, I was still a little skeptical about, like, looking at it, like, as a whole thing all put together, where, like, because, like, Rocket Raccoon's, like, one element. This is, like, an entire movie of that thing. And it's not like we haven't seen CGI talking animals before, but, like, by the time that we got to the point where, like, the jungle is revealed, and things are moving, and things are interacting with one each other, like, I had never seen anything like it. Like, by the time that everything, like, really kicked into swing. And, and as soon as that sucked me in, I found the characters sucking me in, I found the music sucking me in, like, everything was just, all just came together, as movies are meant to do. Mm-hmm. And it just grabbed tight and never let go, and it's been a while. There's only ever so often when I run into a movie where I am just glued. Just nothing is distracting me from what is going on the screen. And that's something this movie really does a good job for you. Like, you feel like you're in that jungle, you feel like you're swinging around the trees, and, you feel all the things. So, knowing that we're both thinking positive about the thing, which is a good place to start, let's start diving deeper.
Okay. So, this movie did so many things better than the original. Mm-hmm. Because, like, okay, in the original, I still love that movie. Mm-hmm. But I admit it has small faults. Like, Mowgli, the main character,
yes,
is kind of just a passive observer in the original Disney.
Yes.
He's just there until the kind of end. He kind of does stuff, but mostly, he ties up things and defeats them. But then, mostly he's just there. He was actually a main character who's a driving point. He wasn't just along for the ride. it was the point. It was way more fleshed out. The kid was a really good actor.
Oh, yeah.
The kid did a really good job.
Like, usually when you watch movies, like, if you ever get to a film where at the end and it says, and introducing so-and-so, it is usually they do that when it's, like, a new person that the studio is, like, really proud of. And, like, when I saw that at the end of the movie, like, I wish I could remember the kid's name, but I'm like, I finished this movie going, like, I don't know what roles are out there that are, like, exactly compatible with this kid, but I definitely hope this guy finds, this kid finds more work. Yeah, like, I really liked watching him in this.
The kid just did everything you need to. I didn't find anything wrong with him specifically. I can't think of. I thought there was a bunch of really good moments. Mm-hmm. I can actually, like, totally on board. The kid was just really good, really defined, perfect. He had good chemistry. The kid was really good.
It's one thing for a kid to carry, a movie by himself, but to carry this kind of movie by himself, like a movie where he has to interact with actors that aren't there and do the whole imaginary green screen thing, it's hard for most adult actors to pull that off. Let alone this kid do it with, like, several characters at once for an entire feature is just remarkably impressive.
Okay. The other characters, I've minor gripes with some casting decisions. Bill Murray wasn't as great as Blue was, I think. Like, he wasn't bad.
Right.
He was still good. There were a couple of lines that were just kind of, it was good. Blue was probably the least, I thought. There was a couple moments where I thought, that doesn't look right. Like a bear shouldn't be doing that, kind of.
Right.
Where none of the other characters, I really did think that. Like, there's a few parts where it looked weird, just has him being a complete still bear. Yeah. Not, like, animated or just... Mm-hmm. But nothing major. Again, minor nitpick. He was the only one I particularly kind of noticed.
I think part of that is just the idea that, making the comparison between remembering what they are and what they're doing... With, like, Baloo is the toughest because he's still a carnivore like the rest of them, but his personality doesn't, like, lend yourself to reminding yourself of that when they switch back. So when Baloo goes from, like, Bill Murray to, like, killer attack bear mode, it's a little bit more jarring than when one of the other characters goes back into animal mode.
But he only does that really once, really. Okay, twice. But once immediately.
Once for comic relief. So.
Yeah, that's like, and that doesn't. He's just, his personality is fine. Bill Murray did really good in the really relax, nothing's fine. I'm just gonna thing. The con artist part was really way better.
Yeah.
In the part like, oh, that's really cool.
Like, I like that idea about his characters. Like, he's not a bad guy, but you can tell like there's like an underlying mischievous, element to him.
Yeah, and that's good. But when he starts like when he tried to like say, no, I'm not your friend anymore, that didn't feel.
Yeah.
I felt a little forced. I mean, yeah, kind of. It's forced because he isn't. But I don't know.
I know what you mean.
That didn't hit me as much as it probably should have.
Yeah.
But then they just kind of ignore that scene in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that wasn't like a big thing because after that they're just like, no, we're just moving on.
Yeah. Like I think there's just better ways they could have approached that to get him in the tree.
Yep.
Like, even if it would have just been like, I was lying, we're actually going to take you to the... like, if he just went back in his promise, and then that would have been enough, too, but, like...
I think he should have just sat down and be like, okay, no, this is a little more serious. I'm a little more, like, I know I'm just the dopey guy, but when I sit down and seriously go, no, seriously, you need to go, things are down.
Right.
And then he gets like, but I don't want to go, and now I had to stay, and now I'm doing good, and then he... But... minor again.
Yeah.
The scene still works. It's just a lesser scene and a bunch of good scenes.
Yeah. The thing I actually like about it is that the movie even like structures itself in a way that's really easy to go over characters, because that's kind of how this story is structured. It's just Mowgli, it just goes from place to place, and it visits all the various people he runs into. Like, from the beginning, like, I loved the way that they did the prologue stuff where they, you know, like, the idea of how they approached him being raised by the wolves felt a lot more believable. You know, they kind of dealt with both the advantages and the disadvantages with that, which I didn't even realize was kind of interesting, where he talked about how just the fact that he ages differently than them is kind of how he doesn't fit in either, which was subtle, but it still kind of worked.
Yeah, see, a lot of that is they took a lot more from the book. Not like they didn't actually, like, still do the original book it's based off of. Because, like, it in one of Disney's, it's completely more separate from its source material.
Yeah.
Than, like, most other things. Like,
right.
Frozen, I guess. But, anyway. But they took the right inspirations.
Right.
Like, they're separate entities, really. Mm-hmm. You can't compare them whatsoever. Yeah. But it took, we're just looking a little more at that. We're just going to borrow this and this and this. Yeah. Like the Wolf Chan and the Wolf thing. Yeah. And like,
because I knew the other characters from the original that I was going to be paying attention to and knew those actors. But I was actually really interested in, like, seeing, like, you know, getting more speaking roles from, like, the wolves, these other characters that weren't in as much of the original as Baloo and the others. And, you know, and I like, you know, and the way they set up the laws of the jungle and that whole thing, and mm-hmm. how the at least in the context of the first act of, like, getting Mowgli to the point where he has to leave, that the water truce, the Peace Rock truce actually made a really good ticking clock. And just the context of it made a great Shere Khan introduction.
Oh.
Of just...
especially that
Idris Elba as Shere Khan was just like the thing that I liked about the way he portrays his role in that is the majority of his intimidation comes from the idea of knowing what he can do at any time, and then him saying he's not going to do it, and just, like, waiting for a pin to drop to when he's actually going to actually do a thing, like. And he doesn't, and it's not like he doesn't live up to that potential to jump to 10 in 5 seconds, but, like,
exactly,
you do believe it from the beginning when he shows up.
Because they're literally at a completely peaceful meeting, and even, like, Big Gero walks up, who is just another big capper, and he walks up, he's like, yeah, I know the rules. And even though they know that he follows the laws and he does all that, they still back away, even though it's completely peaceful. They still aren't just, no one's near him. The birds that were sitting in the crocodile's mouth earlier fly away from him.
Yeah.
That's a moment. And they just like, oh, okay, this is serious.
It's like, and even just the concept of just, like, the spacing of it is like, it's still like one animal versus like 100. Like, every single one of the wolves is ready to go, and even then you can tell they're kind of, you know, even at that point hesitating, like, it's...
And, yeah, and they do still stand up to him.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone's just like, oh no, there's still, like, I forget that. Anyway, the wolf leader, he still looks at him and says, no, this is doing it, we're at peacetime, you aren't going to cause... He's like, no, I would never cause trouble. No, I'm not going to do this.
But the second that rain falls, you know, I can't promise I'm not going to, like...
Yeah, you know.
It's just, it sucks. Like, and things it makes the context of, like, when the rains start pummeling down and, like, the impossible decision of Mowgli becomes, like, that much more believable. Like, it's... Even the way that Shere Khan words it, like, his final line at the end of that is, like, you know, like, how many wolf lives are worth one man cub? Like... It's just like, even if you win, it's not going to be without bloodshed. And, like, that's just such a good line. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, though, I like the fact that it is still, in fact, Mowgli's decision to leave. Yes. Even if he doesn't want to go where they want him to go, he does make the decision, like, look, I don't want you guys getting wrapped up in all this because of me, I'll go.
The mother was really good, the wolf mother.
Like, yeah, which is a character I didn't even know was going to really be, like, even, like, I don't want to say literally in the movie, but you know what I mean? Like, a person in the movie I would end up, you know, actually talking about when all was said and done.
Yeah, and the fact that you can get you to really, really feel for a wolf and a kid is really, that's the testament. When you can really feel them having a real, actual, just general mother-son moment, that's where the movie, that's why the movie works. Yeah. Because you can totally get that, and you're just like, if this was just filmed with just the story just with people, it would still have the exact same impact as the wolf person. Yeah.
And at that point, like, it's also with the technical stuff where it's not as much as, like, whether or not they're going to be able to pull it off or not, but the idea that they did not make, there's a lot of scenes in this where they intentionally didn't make it easy on themselves. Like, when you have it's one thing to have, all the characters CGI'd from the get-go through the moving mouths and all that work, but, like, this is an emotional scene where you're paying more attention than ever, where he is interacting with a wolf that isn't there, like, brushing through thick, matted, wet fur in the rain. Mm-hmm. Like, and you can see the water droplets coming off the bundles of the fur, and I'm like, yeah, and the fact, like, they chose to make it that hard on themselves because they were that confident they could make it look that good.
And it worked. And, like, I don't notice that as nearly as much as most people, because I more get invested in the story.
Right.
But there were moments I noticed that, like, the ones I really, really just, like, stopped and looked back and, like, this really looks cool. And, like, when he was riding on Blue in the river, I'm like, wow, this looks exactly like him riding on a bear. Yeah, he's
splashing water on top of a CGI object, and everything is moving in tandem, in rhythm.
Just like the tiny bit of water just on this thing, and he's just slapping and just going perfect. I'm like, how did they? I'm not a behind the scene guy, but like
I didn't even the illusion I fell for the most was like when Blackner did his review. I didn't know he's talking about the idea of like how they put the whole jungle and everything together, and he says, when I went into this movie, like, based on the trailers and everything, I thought that they actually, like, went out to, like, India or a big jungle like that, took a bunch of pictures, and then CGI'd everything they needed, and had them rock on all the thing. But, like, the entire thing is soundstaged. Like, really? Basically, everything that Mowgli isn't directly touching is fake in the entire jungle. And I wouldn't have known that if someone wouldn't have told me.
Yeah.
Like, that, and knowing that, it was so impressive because that was the only rule I could set, is like, the only way to tell is if he's not physically touching an object, that's the only thing you can't fake, is he has to be able to physically touch a thing because otherwise it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But,
okay,
anyway,
cool.
So that was really impressive. So that leads Mowgli out being led by... What's the name of the guy?
Which guy?
The panther. Bagheera, who's played by Ben Kingsley, if I remember correctly.
Sure.
I really liked him in this one. It's there's something to be said for playing. I've always said there's something really good to be said about being able to play a really good straight man, and he does a really good job at that.
Yeah, he does his part and he does it well, and he's literally just the straight man in this movie, and it works perfectly. Because you still tell he cares, he's the wise mentor person.
Yeah.
And he does that just throughout the movie perfectly in space.
But at the same point, his sarcasm is also kind of enlightening from here and there, like with how he's not always scolding Mowgli, but he uses his sarcasm to kind of be like, okay, I get it, but really we need to keep going this way. From there, like the first like big moment I noticed in the movie where things like really started heating up was when he was trying to warn Mowgli that Shere Khan was in the brush right before the wildebeest stampede. Where just like it's one of those weird jump scares where like you know what's coming, like you absolutely know it's coming, but you still jump. Like it's
as soon as he walked into the grass, I'm like, nope, he's gonna be there. That's 100%.
And the thing I liked about it too is that he didn't set it up as like a dual perspective scene where it was like completely obvious. Like you're not seeing like a cutaway to Shere Khan in the grass and his eyes coming up or anything like that. It just jumps to there's this orange black blur jumping across the screen of death. Like that was so much more effective than than if they would have done it the other way. And it wasn't as simple as, like, Mowgli's, oh, he ran away. It's like, no, it's like a long sequence of, Mowgli, like, barely getting away from Shere Khan even after he defeats the other guy. And yeah, like, it's another, like, really cool sequence where, like, this movie really shows off, like, really how dangerous the jungle is, like, at every turn. Like, Mowgli's a pretty smart and resourceful guy in this movie, but that doesn't stop the fact that, like, everything is out to kill him. Like,
yeah, and, like, most of the things, like, nothing's, like, going out of his way to hurt him, but most of them don't care. Like, the wildebeest, they're just running.
Yeah, they're just...
Like, none of them are trying to hit him, but they're stampeding wildebeest. So, he's still like, oh crap, there's actual danger here. And it makes you feel...
he's dodging and weaving outside of a wildebeest stampede in the mud.
Yeah.
And then jumps at just the right time to ride a wildebeest into the...
The scene that really, really plays that is the scene right after that, after he gets out of the stampede, when he's just riding and you just see the mudslide.
Oh my god, the mudslide, yeah.
That was really, really,
it's a
really
awesome
good.
sequence of, like, how in the heck is he going to get out of this one kind of thing. Like,
yeah, because this isn't just, he's just like, he just immediately ditches the world, he just jumps. It's not like, I thought he was going to be like, I don't know, I was still kind of, like, okay, what's it going to do? He's going to do it? No, he's just like, screw it, done. Jumps in the thing and just like he doesn't got no clever plan to do this. He can't stop a mudslide. He is just running and barely making it, and then gets over and it just gets the branch and it's like not needed at all. But it was a really cool. He's not really
out of the woods after that point either, because only like 5 minutes later we're at the Ka sequence. Which one thing I loved about the way they shot this sequence was, in the reveal, they were very careful to never show you exactly how big Ka actually is. Like, you just see, like, you cut from one angle. Usually it'd be like, oh, she's hiding somewhere. And then just the trees. But it's not just the trees. It's like, oh, there's a little bit of Ka there, and a little bit of Ka there. Yep. And you're like... So, like, you get the sense that, like, it was just this enormous snake hiding in the trees. So even with the point when Ka's finally revealed, but Mowgli is only seeing, like, in his mind, this small, kind creature just talking him through all these things.
That scene was done really well. It was shot really well. She did. I
mean, by far, Scarlett Johansson was the largest change compared to the original.
That's my only complaint is the voice. Her voice didn't work nearly as well as compare. You have to. I compare it to Disney.
Yeah.
It doesn't be.
Jim Cummings.
Yes. It's like I just wanted to say Winnie the Pooh.
No, it's like there was a sequence recently where he did like Darkwing Duck in like multiple characters' voices, and they asked him to do Ka. He's like, don't make me do Ka. It's just evil Winnie the Pooh.
Anyway, but she was good and she did great. It's just that's a personal thing,
right?
That's just like you can't beat that.
No, it's at the very least they were going for a completely different style of scene in it, so it feels more apples to oranges, and I'm glad they took that direction with it. But yeah, it's definitely with that one a matter of preference.
It kind of was, with the exception of it gave you the backstory a little bit.
Yeah,
the scene was kind of pointless.
Yeah,
the scene was done real good. It actually gave me, oh crap. Moment.
Yeah, like the context of it's really cool. Like I like the idea of how they kind of like illuminated towards like the hypnotic eye, and then that did the flashback, and then they slowly peel back, and by the time you're done telling the story, you're wrapped like 5 times around him, and you're like right about to. And the jaw was actually big enough to eat him because the snake was so huge. I was just like, holy crap! Like.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. My only. Oh, it's not my only complaint, because I literally just said one. But the scene was, it was kind of pointless. Like,
I think that's part of the reason they adjusted it too, because they played her cover of the "Trust in Me" song during the end credits. And the weird thing is, I don't know this for certain, a lot of the earlier, like really early press reviews I heard about this, particularly griped a little bit harder about her scene being specifically too long. And I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing what it may have been is they did have that song in that sequence. And then when those complaints came in, they shortened it to just the flashback.
I was going to say, because I really wanted that song.
Right.
It's one of my favorite parts in the original movie. And that song is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's short, it's comparatively. It's short, it's quick, it's just good thing. And yeah, I didn't want them to do like where he's just rapping around and doing that. I didn't want all that. How they did it, just good. Mm-hmm. I wish they would have kept. I kind of wish.
I know what you mean. It's a weird thing. It's like when they played the cover at the end. One thing I did like about the cover is that it's one of the very few songs, and it's like they actually made it sound like specifically Indian, like with a lot of the instruments that played with it. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay. But yeah, it's weird because like Ka is like a really memorable character from those movies, but even then he's not like. Even in sequence, he's not, like, extremely important in the grand scheme of things. Like, he's there for Baloo to have a reason to instigate the whole thing. Yeah. But, yeah, it's a difficult thing, because you either add screen time or take away screen time or, to make the character work.
So, yeah, I kind of miss the song, but I can completely agree if that was what happened. I don't know. But, yeah, I could see. Anyway, the scene was still really good.
Oh yeah, like
it still gave me chills. Like you know exactly what's gonna happen, but it's happening and it's done well. Mm-hmm. And then you get Baloo.
Baloo is just
Baloo.
The thing that I liked about it too is that like, especially when it comes to like comic relief characters, like Baloo, even like screen time wise, came in like exactly when he needed to. Like you get past like. He's just about to be eaten by this giant snake, and this is right after all the other stuff happened. And, like, you could use a couple of laughs, like, right about there. Like,
the thing is, he wasn't just a comic relief character.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't even mainly a comic relief character. He was just a breath of fresh air. He was he was calming. Mm-hmm. That's what he does. And he just brought, whenever he was in the scene, you could just feel his unenthusiasm.
Yeah, and that's why Bill Murray was so perfect for it. He's just a character of, whatever, don't worry about it.
And like, when he does that great.
Yeah.
But yeah, and his intro scene was really good.
Oh yeah.
That was his best part.
Because at one point, like, most of the other characters, like, the fact that their animals are, like, so huge are meant to be, like, a point of intimidation. But with Baloo, it did the opposite effect. So we're like, when he sits down with a thud, it's like he feels more like a big old cuddly teddy bear rather than this, giant Indian, brown bear. But then immediately after that, we get Shere Khan's first, when he his long live the king moment, as it were, like.
Yeah,
man, I don't know, like, just, like we said before, like, it's that idea that, like, that he's intimidating because he could snap at, like, any point. But then when he did, like, the first time he actually does snap.
Yeah, I was like,
Like, even the timing of it was just remarkably fast. Like, it was like, did that just happen? Like, he just picked the king up and threw him off the cliff.
And it happened literally before, like, they didn't draw it out, they didn't do it. It just done, and he's like, oh, it's too late. Are you going to do anything? No, you could all attack me and maybe win, but it's too late now. He's dead.
And that's immediately before he, just basically sat next to him on the throne of the rock. Like,
that scene was actually really cool when he just walks up and then he sits, well, like a cat, but also, like, regally. It was, like I am...
Like, you'd imagine if this was a live-action scene, it'd be the equivalent of, like, your greatest enemy walking up to the king's throne and just sitting himself delicately on the armrest, just...
Yes. But he still looked exactly cat-like. He still looked exactly... And the dog still just... That scene, just set up between him on this side and him over there, just sitting. You could read just as much. You almost didn't need dialogue. Like, if you...
Right.
You could almost do that whole thing just completely silent. And you could still see, like, okay, I get what's going on here. I get what's going on here. This is exactly perfect. And then flips him and done. That was just like, oh. Because most villains...
Yes.
You get that scene, and you know how badass he is, which we already clearly established, but now we see it, and we see it just for a second. Just boom. Oh.
Because the interesting thing about that I like about the way, at least from Shere Khan's perspective, how it's done, is one of my biggest gripes when it comes to, like, any villain in anything, is the false promise cliches. Like, when they go through the whole big sequence and it's like, oh, they're like, oh, I lied! And then he just kills the person anyway, because it's stupid and it's lazy. With Shere Khan, not only does he not do that, but, like, from his perspective, he's the one that believes that their side of the, the bargain, or, well, he sees it as a bargain, they see it as a threat, but, like, hasn't been lived up, and that it is his duty to... to rectify that he feels someone else has broken their word.
Yeah.
Which I found was fascinating.
He's not just a tiger who hates humans.
Right.
He's just, he's abiding by the law. This is the law of the jungle. This is how it works. And everything he said made sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you know what? He is going to become a man. And if anything, watching... any type of movie like this before, you know what's going to happen. You know that's what's going to happen eventually.
Yes.
Because that's how, like, this movie didn't do that, but eventually, someday, yeah, he is going to grow up.
Yeah.
And the movie doesn't dwell on that.
Right.
It's just, it never really even addresses it. It's just a fact that it thinks you understand.
Yes.
And he brings it up and, like, and it's just really good because he's just playing by the rules as he sees. And he's just like...
The best villains are the villains that don't think that they're villains.
Yeah, he's not a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, but... he's just obeying the rules and just doing his thing as the tiger, the head hunter, the big cat. The big cat.
Yeah, that's what you mean. Oh. So, moving on from there, like we said, we mentioned the sequence where you talked about, like... Could have been a little bit smoother on the scene where they're trying to convince him to go back to the thing. Well, actually, we missed the way that they actually recreated the Bare Necessities song in the live action movie with Baloo. Which the thing I liked about it is, for one, you saw like the humming air versions where you kind of see in the trailer where Baloo's like kind of talking about like the idea of like a song of just being a thing that he'd kind of run into, that he's just just casually not worrying about anything, that he'd, like, find something like that. But then when they actually, like, play it and do the whole thing, they did it as, like, this really cool Dixieland jazz number. As they, like you said, they did that really cool sequence of him, like, beating the drum off of Baloo's belly as they roll down the thing, and it's just...
That's the scene that if they would have messed up, I could have... It would have killed the film for me. It truly would have.
Yeah.
That's the main scene. That's the scene you think of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they did that. They did it good. They did it well. They didn't do it perfect. They did it.
Even the way they sequenced out of it with like the rustling of the bushes and Baloo keeps singing and they're like, no, Baloo, there might be something over there trying to kill us, and he's still just like, and then he just keeps going. Because I know it wasn't Shere Khan over there, but it's still a really funny thing of like, Baloo, shut up! Like,
But the thing is, you don't know what's over there. Yeah, no, it's like, not. They couldn't have done Shere Khan, but this movie is still throwing unexpected.
It could be any random, like,
maybe it was. You don't know what this movie's throwing at you.
It could have been any random.
You didn't expect him to get thrown off there.
Yeah.
So this... Anyway, yeah.
Even just the context of, like, when they're making the... trying to convince Mowgli before, when he's trying to tell Baloo who's after him. Like, it's like... He always says, like, no big deal, it's, it's just a tiger. And then specifically says Shere Khan.
And he's
Which, even though he's the only tiger that shows up in the movie, it gives you a context that, like... Shere Khan isn't just any tiger. He is like the tiger.
Yeah, he's like he's a tiger.
Of the jungle.
He's a tiger. Well, I'm a bear. I don't
he's like
act like a bear.
His size,
but I'm still a bear. And it's like, oh, this is Shere Khan. Oh, okay.
You're right. Okay.
I absolutely agree. That's another part that I really, really love. Mm-hmm. Really love when movies do this, and this movie did it in spades.
Yes.
Is they don't focus. There's no big "I told you so."
Oh yeah.
There's no big. He's just like, "Oh, I completely agree," and he's like, "No, I need you to do this, and you're the only one who can get him to go because you convinced him not to, but you can convince him to do it." And he doesn't say anything. He just walks off and does it.
Yeah. And sure, Mowgli gets angry, but it's not immediately followed by a 45-minute sequence of nothing happening, waiting for both of them to get back together. And they just skip like that whole cliche altogether and just move on with the movie.
Especially when Bagheera gets proven wrong.
Yes!
They never address that. All that they do is Blue says, no, he was totally with you. He may not act like it because that's how he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that, obviously, but, you get that. And you never get a moment where like, yeah, I told you so, which would totally work for a 7-year-old.
Yeah, to like throw it back in his face that he was.
But like, yeah. But no, he's just.
So immediately after that, he gets kidnapped by the monkeys and taken back to the temple. Which one small thing I noticed about the temple was interesting is that earlier in the movie they talked about the fact that like how the elephants are seen as like, as like these silent gods. They kind of morph everything. But then it's actually like elephant statues on the side of King Louis's kingdom. So like that kind of like adds to it as well.
Yeah.
And so this sequence was interesting because they changed the kind of monkey that King Louis was because orangutans don't actually live in the Indian jungle.
Yeah.
So they found this other kind of
but they kept him still or nothing.
And what's interesting is the scene is in many ways very similar to the way that the original was put together, but it's like the same, but in a way it's very different. What I mean as far as like the beats are all the same, but the contexts of how it comes off. Like it's supposed to be a thing of King Louis trying to put his his public face on, but realizing his intentions underneath are a lot darker. But with this version, the thing I liked about it is that like the belief of it, like, of when it gets darker, like, you absolutely believe it. Like, of all the characters in this movie, that I thought that the celebrity actor was going to be the most, like, the hardest to ignore.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be damned if there wasn't at least one or two moments I wasn't reminded of the fact that I'm watching Christopher Walken as a giant gorilla swinging around a giant stone room. Like,
okay. I knew Bill Murray was in it. I knew Scarlett Johansson was in it. I don't know how, but I didn't know, like, I was trying to sort of...
Yeah, it's trying to avoid things.
I did not know Christopher Walken was in it completely, and it didn't hit me until halfway in the scene. I'm like, oh. And then I was like, wow, how did I miss that? He is one of the most iconic voices. But that's how sucked in I was in the movie at that moment. Like, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, wow, that's dude. And he did really good. With exception, he can't sing.
But at the same point, he doesn't really sing traditionally, but I like the way that his, like, Walkenistic cadence kind of bounces around the sing-song, the talk-singy kind of way he does it.
I get what they were trying to do. It didn't hit for me.
Okay.
That scene, I know what they're trying to do, and they tried to work to the strength, and that... It almost works for me.
Okay.
It just doesn't. Like, the character is good. You said this a little, but yeah, of all the characters I thought they were going to screw up,
it'd be the hardest to ignore Christopher Walken's voice coming out of...
I just think if just doing it all, I think he would have been the worst just from... Saw in the trailer when he was like giant and the thing. But no, they totally made that work. Mm-hmm. They totally went pretty much completely different. Not completely, but yeah. They fleshed him more out in small ways.
Yeah.
And that felt really, really good.
Like, the main difference was in their portrayal of, as far as, like, his persona is, like, rather than the original where he comes off as more of, like, this kind of swinging party animal kind of guy, but you only really notice when he gets angry. With this version, he's more of like this laid-back mafia don kind of guy who's just like, instead he was like, look at all this cool stuff I have. That's like his party element. Like when he throws the fruit into the air in the middle of the song, it's like all of his riches. But the same part, his wording was just so amazing, where basically he's trying to say Mowgli, like, it's like, you could bring me the fire, like, because, you know what I mean, like, it's I'm the leader of this jungle, and it's a dangerous jungle out there, and, it'd be kind of a shame if something bad were to happen to you. Like, it's...
And I think, like, Mowgli should have bought into that a little bit more. Because that is totally... He almost had everything he wanted.
Yeah.
And, like, he only just recently heard about this red fire.
Yeah.
Red flower.
Yeah.
And he's heard bad things about it. But, I mean, like, this guy totally seemed like a nice guy. I don't 100% get why he didn't.
I think the reason why is it wasn't mostly based on what he, like, if he believed it was true or not. I think they just should have delayed later on in the scene that red flower was what he was looking for. Because Mowgli's main complaint mostly was that he didn't know he could get it.
Yeah.
Rather than believing actually what he was saying. So, like, you could have got off the whole thing and was like, oh yeah, totally, this sounds awesome. Okay, well then all you need to do is bring red flower. Oh, it's like, about that, like, and that would, kind of turn.
It's really good. It's just that scene with exceptions, but that scene probably one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah,
especially the part where he's singing, even though that it's
the style of doing it is going to be divisive, and I understand that, but. But
him throwing out, like, him just playing with the treasures a little bit and the slow build up.
Yeah.
And then you just see him reach out.
I think maybe what would have helped the sing-songy thing is if he would have done it, if he would have done it a cappella. Like, if they wouldn't have done it like a full song and it was more supposed to be him kind of like, just kind of walking around and talking to Mowgli rather than putting like the whole band and everything behind him, it would have came off a little bit better.
Or just like, you could actually maybe have the monkeys like... drumming or maybe them doing more.
Like have them kind of like beating on all of his all
like
shields and stuff that's around the place and
they or whatever, either small things.
I get what you mean.
When he gets when he apes out, that was really cool.
But even right before that, just like, I'm your biggest... Baloo comes and says, I'm your biggest fan. I climbed all the way up the cliff, and his first reaction, with no other context, is, throw him back over the cliff. Just like, I'm not even gonna bother. Just throw him back over.
Blue, the joke. I don't know. The jokes didn't hit me there, but the scene did.
Yeah.
But the jokes didn't hit me like, okay, haha. Anyway. But the scene still worked because he's just delaying time. Yeah. And him pushing the monkeys off.
I think that I think it was more Baloo's gallows humor part of the joke was what landed more for him. It's like, throw him back over the cliff. Okay, we could do that, or another possible suggestion.
I'm totally for that. I'll
jump off the cliff. Just give me a minute. Like
just give me a second of your time. And he's not having none of this. He is doing like this.
But, like, when you talk about when Louis does ape out, with what makes it so cool is the way that they do it when just the idea of watching him stand up. This feels like a dramatic, like, because you get the context from before the scene, like, specifically this is a guy who doesn't need to stand up. Like, he's powerful enough that even it's the idea that, like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this myself is just like a pin drop moment. And then, because even then, until then, you don't even truly see how big he is. Like,
yeah. And he has this, the best part is they just put the little thing where he just rips a little bit of fur still a little sticking up in there when he gets up. I was like, oh, he's been there forever. He hasn't gotten up. He hasn't gotten up that.
Probably in years.
Just. Oh.
And then he roars, the entire scene stops.
Because...
And then keeps going again, just...
Oh yeah, this is not a thing. And he's just literally just smashing bricks. He's crawling through the thing. And ends up collapsing himself on a thing. Like... I don't know, Mowgli just ran away from him. I thought he would have been like...
Tried to, like, tie him up in vines or something, or, like...
I thought he was, like, strategically trying to make it collapse on him.
Yeah.
But he just ran and it just collapsed. And...
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was what they're going for, and the editing didn't really show it off. I'm not sure.
Maybe, either way. Because either way, it still works.
Yeah, it definitely still works.
And it doesn't make sense. Like, he's still 7. Yeah, he doesn't really know about architecture, but...
yeah, like, you could have seen, like, one pillar fall over, or, like...
Yeah,
you could see him intentionally crawling through all of the places only he could get through, but I don't know if he knew if the whole thing was going to fall on him or not.
Either way, but, yeah, the scene was cool. And then the monkeys, like, they're overpowering him just by sheer numbers. And then they immediately stop and just go and just like, oh no, shit. Yeah. Going through the tiny stones, like, that's going to help. But they have to do something because...
Yeah, like, they have no idea what else to do.
Oh no, we're dead after this.
Right. But also the collapsing the stones made it actually work, so it made the staging work so that the reveal of the wolf dad's, death could actually work. Which, at least, the other thing I liked about that scene is that, like, in the context of being one of those who's like, oh, the liar reveals, running away to think, like, there was a really legit reason not to tell him. Because I know Mowgli would be the kind of stupid, heroic guy that would run right back into Shere Khan's
And that's
trap.
exactly
That's
what
exactly
he did.
what he did.
Because he's a 7-year-old.
Yes.
And he's just like, yeah. And he just, the best, then the scene that really does that is the fire scene.
Yes.
That's a scene
when he gets back to the village and he realizes that
he just sees it from afar and you could barely see it because it's almost pitch black except for the giant roaring fire.
Right.
And you just see the people just being people, but it's just
Shere Khan's like, I warned you, and it's like,
it just feels alien, even though it's just a tribe over there of men. And it's just it already felt alien.
Yeah.
In the hours, whatever, in the movie, and it just really, and grabs the torch, and it's just, exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, but it also
happens in the best way.
But at the same point, like, it doesn't feel like a small feat when Mowgli throws the torch away either, even if you can somewhat see it coming, because Shere Khan's reaction just slowly coming at him was like, it's like, that is he literally out loud says, that is the stupidest thing you possibly could have done, like, without your fire, you have no claws, you have no teeth, you have nothing. Like, but then they also do the thing I like about Shere Khan that works the sequence is that when they do, like, if you're going to face one, you're going to face all of us kind of thing where, like, everyone comes back and fights the bully. And it's always like, oh, well, I can't take all you guys on, and the bully runs away. But Shere Khan's like, all right. If it's me against all of you,
okay,
it's me against all of you.
So I just got to get one little kid. That's a part is like he was never actually trying to really, really hurt anyone else.
Yes,
he wasn't like he's like he gets really mad at Bagheera and he's like, I'm gonna end this for a second. That's the only time he really, really threatens another character. That's besides obviously killing.
Yes,
where he just physically. It's just like, okay, I'm just gonna crush you. And but like before that, the scene where he's like, no, this is exactly what I said was gonna happen, and he does that. That scene was, okay, I've said this so many times.
Yes.
But this is the scene, like, of all the scenes, this is the scene that really pinched it. Mm-hmm. This whole scene where he just comes up, it's almost pitch black except for the giant torch.
Yes.
And the big in the background, really subtly, but you can just see the orange of the trees.
Yeah.
And what's going on. Everyone knows, but it's not like a big forest fire. It's just in the distance. And he's like, this is exactly what happened. Uh-huh. I said it was going to happen. It happened. And like, yeah, I know I'm like the most terrifying thing on that planet. But right now, they're more scared of that little stick.
Yes.
That little flame. And you can see all the characters... Even his mother and the pack are like, we don't. That's like, you felt that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really felt that
Like,
so much.
The closest thing I can compare it to, like, and this is an example where they tried to do that same thing, and I hated it, was when, during The Lion King, when he first comes back to face Scar, and he's supposed to have gotten over everything, and then Scar immediately just manipulates him all over again, even despite of, like, everything he's already, already gone through. And because, like, the idea that, like, at least in this context, there's an exact context to it. But there's no reason in Lion King for everyone to immediately believe Scar. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and then after it's been trying to immediately believe Simba again because he did.
But in this context, there's more of an outside tangible object. It's not about who you trust or who you don't trust. It's based on the evidence that is present in the situation.
And he makes such a real big moment when all he does is throw it away, his only weapon, which he could have easily just won the fight. Mm-hmm. But, okay, not easily, but, it implies that, he could, it's going to go down. And he has the advantage because they've built it up so much. He's like, you can kill me with that. That can absolutely kill me. Are you ready to take that risk? And he throws it away, and that's a big moment where everyone's just like, nope, we're on him, and we are totally behind him.
But then even then, like, the way the actual end fight between Mowgli and Shere Khan was also, like, so crazy. Because, like, as hypothetically, like, he's going to use his, after, he's get told to, like, actually do things the Mowgli way and, do all his tools and all that. But that's still not an easy task. I mean, they're both, like, running through a burning inferno, like, from branch to branch, trying to figure out how to... And even then, he barely gets away from Shere Khan. Like, he has to blindly jump off of a tree onto a tiny little swing he built for himself for Shere Khan to fall onto the flames. Like, it's...
Yeah, it wasn't... Shere Khan was an idiot.
Oh, he was. Like,
But you could totally believe it.
Because he's just blinded by rage at that point.
Yeah, that's the thing is... You could totally think he's like, I know this is going to happen. He never really did it, but he could see that, he's totally okay with him dying to take this out. Yeah, like
when he says, like, either I'm going to kill you or the red flower will, he's basically saying, it's another way of him saying, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take you down with me. Like, it's basically what he's saying.
But I thought would have been slightly cooler. Like, I have no qualms with that scene.
Yeah.
But what I thought he was going to do is just sit down and just be like, I can just wait this out. Fire's just going to consume it.
Right.
But no, anyway, just a thing that, like, could have, I don't know, maybe it would have been weird and focused, but that's what I thought, and I thought that would have been cool. But the scene still worked. You knew it was going to happen. Yeah. He set it up. It wasn't like, no, I have the secret plan. It was like, you can tell what the plan is.
Yes.
He uses the thing, he cuts the thing, he sets it up, you're like, okay, he's going to jump to that and climb to that to safety.
And Shere Khan looked like he was going to stay there until Mowgli starts baiting him and, like, taking advantage of the fact that he's, like, arrogant and pompous and all that. Like,
that's the thing is, the scene really doesn't throw, like, it throws twists at you once in a while, just when it needs to. But pretty much it's straightforward. But that's the best part, is you know what it's going to do, and it does it so well. The scene is going to be exactly like the scene from the beginning. Like, the very first thing he pretty much learns is going to be the last thing he does, because that's how story works, kind of.
Yeah.
It's going to come full circle, because it feels good when it does. But it still feels really, really good when it's exactly that. And it don't need more... You don't need more than that.
Right.
Because it's still that, and they don't focus on his death. He goes into the fire, whoosh, little thing. And the elephants that just, the best part is the elephants, they don't have any lines pretty much.
Oh yeah, like the elephants were really cool.
They literally act like
a
kings or gods or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just, absolutely respectful, and he's just riding the baby elephant, and then he just like, because I was like, I truly didn't know how they were gonna. I was like, they have to stop the fire somehow, and I thought Mowgli was maybe gonna stop it somehow, but like, no, just these elephants come out of nowhere, and they don't come out of nowhere because it clearly set it up. Just you completely forgot about it because there were bigger stuff happening. And it just the whole ending was perfect, and then you just got the nice little moment, and they sat on the tree. The ending was great, and the credits felt weird, but.
A little bit. Like, I like the idea of the storybook thing, and then they did the pop-up book thing, and I'm like, the pop-up book thing was cute, but it's almost, I have to think about it, like, separate from my opinions on the movie, because it is just a credits flur, which was cool, but I'm not going to let that, add or subtract from the movie. It's just kind of a cool thing.
It just really annoyed me.
It was jarring in comparison to, like everything else.
If they would have just put the Trust in Me song first, and then, anyway, again, minor, stupid complaints, which, okay, again, that's pretty much all I have to say is minor complaints or minor nitpicks.
Absolutely.
Like, there's... Okay, I'm totally 100% the person who would buy it. Like, this movie...
Yeah, I understand. This movie is pulling the right heartstrings.
Besides aiming at 10-year-olds, more of it's aiming at exactly me.
Right.
Exactly me, who is totally into the original, totally into the thing, and still a huge Disney fan. This was a movie exactly for me, and it hit me, and it did great. I really want to talk to someone who hated this movie.
Yeah,
because I really want to see how.
One.
Like, I haven't watched reviews or anything for this movie, but I've heard small positive things.
The only major person I've seen that doesn't like it is Doug Walker. And he specifically said that he feels like it doesn't... he says he doesn't feel like it does anything specifically better than the original did.
No, it does so many things better.
I know! That's what I said. Like,
first, case in point, the main character.
Absolutely.
The main character has more character. Yeah, it is still just good 10-year-old kid, but he's still the 8, 7, whatever. He's still a kid. And that's the best part. Is he totally kid? You can totally buy. Yeah, he is. He never has like a bad moment. He never has that.
Not that I really care about these kind of things. I know you don't either. But I swear, if this kid doesn't get at least a couple of nominations out of this movie, then I don't know what's going on. Like,
I could care less.
I know you could care less, but I'm saying that like you looked really good.
I don't know. Is this gonna be a movie that I'm gonna watch 10 years down the line? Because like Jungle Book isn't the one I pop in whenever, but I would totally pop in and if it's on like TV or I run across it, I would totally watch it.
I would totally watch this on TV. You're having a couple friends over,
but
and just,
like, I can totally see this. Like, this is like, I don't really
a potential
buy movies,
next gen Disney classic
like
kind of thing.
I totally don't buy movies anymore, but I could, if I did, I would totally see this. Like, this is like, I'm totally like, I really just want to watch that movie right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Where like I liked Cinderella, but like I'm not gonna go watch that.
No, I'm just saying,
This, more importantly, this has made me more excited for the live action movies again.
Yes.
Which,
like, a good comparison is like coming out of Cinderella, both of us basically had the opinion that like on the level of quality of the movie, like it ticked all the right bars, but at the same point, we were so far from the target audience of this movie that like that's probably the closest to like a really positive opinion we could give it. This movie had all those same, well, you know what I mean, like as far as like it wasn't for us, but there's still several good things to say about it.
I had more good things. I was 2 steps above that, but anyway, semantics.
What I mean though is that like it's almost as if this movie's kind of like, it's still like really good on that live action interpretation level and all that kind of stuff for this movie, but it also happens to be something that's in our wheelhouse that we're a lot more likely to enjoy in its own right.
Yeah, this is, as I said, this was one that hit all the buttons for me, and it hit them well.
Right.
I can't say much better. It did everything I want it to be.
Yeah.
And did none of the things I feared it would be.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
which, it just, okay, maybe it's just because I just saw it. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because of the thing. But this is totally one of my favorite Disney movies in recent history.
Oh, yeah.
Just like...
I would say that.
I'm on board. And it's just really, more importantly, it's made me I was always going to see the Disney movie and I was excited. But this made me really excited for just Disney in general again. And I never wasn't not excited.
No, I hear you.
But like the last few killed me, like Pan and
Did you actually see Pan? I didn't even want
to. I ended up having to because I couldn't not.
Right.
I regret it now. Like anyway.
Fair enough.
We're not talking about that.
No.
Because this is so not that.
Yeah.
It didn't. Best part is, it didn't need to change pretty much anything. The original Jungle Book is still there and it's still a solid piece.
Yeah.
And it didn't change, it just added.
Yes.
Okay, it did some
parts.
parts,
What do you mean?
but
like it's not working itself as a replacement to the original.
I feel like I'm just going over myself at this point, but this movie is so good.
Yeah. Couple little things. I mean, probably mentioned matchup. I really like that. I think on one hand, I know Disney's probably wanted a movie like this for quite a while. Like it felt from a lot of things you've been hearing about this movie. This is kind of like one of those movies that the studios like wanted to do for a long time. It's just been kind of just waiting around for the tech to catch up to do it the way they want. Mm-hmm. And I was very happy to see that it did, in fact. They didn't do this movie. The worst thing could have happened in this movie. Not saying that this was specifically the year it had to be made. The worst thing could have happened to a movie like this is for a movie like this to be made like 1 or 2 years too early.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad this movie didn't get made. I didn't have a lot of like Uncanny Valley problems or anything like that with this movie. And I also think this is a movie that Jon Favreau's probably wanted for a while. Favreau's not really a director that is like, begging for another movie, but he is kind of like one of those more underrated guys in Hollywood because he kind of only works when he wants to.
Sure.
But I really like his stuff overall, and I'm really glad he did such a good job with this one. I would definitely recommend if you want a fun Disney afternoon, go out and watch this movie because it is an amazing experience.
This is exactly what Disney does best. This is Disney just doing pure Disney. This is just a pure Disney movie down to its core.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
this movie, it's hard to speak so much about a movie that speaks for itself, as cliche of a statement as that is. But at times, that is literally all you end up with. I really hope you guys all enjoyed our podcast. Jungle Book. Watch it.
Yes.
And without further ado, we will see you next time.
Now, just don't ruin Beauty and the Beast.
Please don't ruin it. Don't do it. Also, hashtag where's my Tailspin live action movie? What? Tailspin live action 2017. Let's do it. Do it. The Bomvoyage Podcast is produced by Deadman Inc. Productions in association with Digital Nerdage. Hosted by Ken Johnson and Travis Steffens. Edited by Ken Johnson. If you'd like to know more about Bomvoyage Podcast, check us out and subscribe at soundcloud.com/deadmaninc or at digitalnerdage.com.